Доброго дня, шановні учасники. Рівно 15:00 завершуємо наше тривале стажування, яке тривало протягом 6 тижнів. І сьогодні у нас останній тиждень, і відповідно остання третя лекція. На щастя, я думаю, у більшості з вас накал першого тижня навчального року спав і вже більш-менш активні і легше працювати. І у нас для вас гарна новина. Сьогодні секретаріат новою поштою розіслав збірники тест-конференції та сертифікати, які ми отримали з Польщі, з мокрими печатками про стажування. Що стосується Укрпошти, тобто хто вказав в заявці направлення Укрпоштою, то плануємо вивіз матеріалів на п'ятницю, тобто 11-го, як і обіцяли, вже буде зроблена розсилка. А завтра більшість з вас, зокрема, мені інформували, що багато з представників технічних наук та медичних наук вказали нову пошту, тому завтра вже отримаєте матеріали від Куявського університету. Нас сьогодні станом на зараз 41, тобто початок гарний. Минулого разу на початку у нас було 35, і протягом лекції ми дійшли до цифри 65. Будемо рухатись. Ще раз представляю нашого доповідача. Всім вже нам знайома Джоанна Скіба, кандидат філологічних наук, керівник міжнародного відділу Куявського університету, досвідчений дослідник на теренах Польщі проблем освіти дорослих. Відповідно, сьогоднішня тема, яка заявлена, це роль освіти дорослих в інноваційній економіці. Joanna, please speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm meeting some of you for the second or even third time during my lectures. And I'm very happy about this and happy to be able to connect with you and to share information and experience. This is also a very special week for me, a special moment, because I am celebrating 20 years of academic work at my university this week, and it's going to be on Friday, and it's going to be a big day for me because it's 20 years of academic work at Kujawian University, or Kujawska Szkoła Wyższa, as I was introduced. Today's topic is the lifelong learning. I have put some questions at the very beginning. And the first one is, what is lifelong learning? Can we continue education in adult life? What are the available systems of adult education? Why is validation in life learning important? What is innovation? And the final question, the final problem is, what is the future of adult education? As I work in the field of adult education, and I've been doing different projects mainly under Erasmus Plus in the recent 10 years when the funding was available and is still available. I have quite a lot of experience in that. So lifelong learning can be also renamed into adult education or adult learning, and we are all aware of that. How can the notion be defined? It can be broadly defined as learning that is pursued throughout life. The learning which is flexible, diverse, and available at different times and in different places. Lifelong learning crosses sectors. It promotes learning beyond traditional schooling and throughout adult life. This is apart from our compulsory education. This definition is based on the 4 pillars, 4 elements or definitions of education for the future. The first base of pillar is learning to know. It's a concept which is mastering learning tools rather than acquisition of structured knowledge. Pillar number 2 is learning to do. So when we equip people for the types of work needed now and in near future. The third pillar is learning to live together and with others, which is peacefully resolving conflict, discovering other people and cultures, fostering community capability and individual competence. The fourth pillar is learning to be. It's education contributing to a person's complete development of mind, body, intelligence, sensitivity, aesthetic appreciation, and spirituality. So these are the four main pillars of lifelong learning. The European Commission found that the lifelong learning has four broad and mutually supporting objectives. This is personal fulfillment, active citizenship, social inclusion, and employability. In this regard, lifelong learning has life-wide dimensions and possess economic and vocational aspects. The European Lifelong Learning Initiative defines lifelong learning as a continuously supportive process which stimulates and empowers individuals to acquire all the knowledge, values, skills, and understanding they will require through their lifetimes. At our university, we have many initiatives which are part of adult education and lifelong learning. And one of them is the so-called Open University. We call it the University of the Third Age sometimes, which is geared to people of like those who are retired, those who are over 60 or 55 sometimes. And the situation is that we, for the recent 10 years, we have been providing those people with different courses, for informal ways of education, and this is growing. This Open University is growing heavily and dynamically because people of that age want to be part of society and want to join different initiatives. I want to talk about the types of adult education. Adult education is a practice in which adults engage in systematic and sustained learning activities in order to gain new forms of knowledge, skills, attitudes, or values. It can mean any form of learning that adults can engage in beyond traditional schooling. So they encompass basic literacy for personal fulfillment as a lifelong learner. In particular, adult education reflects a specific philosophy about learning and teaching, which is based on the assumption that adults can and want to learn, which is very important, and that they are able and willing to take responsibility for that learning, and that the learning itself should respond to their needs. Driven by what one needs to learn and acquire, and the available opportunities and the manner in which one learns, adult learning is affected by many factors like demographics, globalization, and finally, I think the strongest, technology. The learning happens in many ways and in many different contexts. The context may be formal, which is the biggest and most popular, when structured learning that typically takes place in education or training institution is usually set within the curriculum or a program, and it requires validation. It means that the final certificate is very important. The learning can be non-formal. So this is the part of learning that is organized by educational institutions, but it's not credentials. So the validation is not so important, or maybe not important at all. Informal education, this is the learning that goes on all the time. It results from our daily activities related to work, family, community, or even leisure, when we attend a baking class, for example, or a spaghetti making class. This analysis of lifelong learning differs from what is postulated by OECD, which classifies formal learning as a program of study that is recognized through a qualification. So the non-formal learning as a program of study that is not recognized through qualification, and informal learning, which is achieved outside an organized program. The non-formal education forms are the workshops and seminars in the workplace, courses in the free time of work, training organized by our employers, private lessons with the teachers, guided practice during our job, and open and distance education. The informal education is usually not so much institutionalized, and these are learning events, activities of like family directed activities or social activities. This is also learning from family members, friends and colleagues, but I think this is not of much of our interest to us right now. The distinction between formal and non-formal learning environments is about where learning takes place. The formal learning courses are within the institutions, which are established primarily to deliver education and training. They often lead to recognized outcomes, and most of all, they lead to obtaining qualifications. The non-formal learning has intended education and training outcomes. However, the setting is outside the dedicated learning institutions, and most often is in places where learning is not the primary business. Informal learning is distinguishable by intent. It can occur almost anywhere as a byproduct of other activities. It is usually and very often unplanned and without any emphasis on learning, and it may lead to acquisition of valuable skills, knowledge, or life attitudes. In all types of adult education, we have about 90% of all students. So graduates, and they are the people after high school who want to participate in adult education rather than in vocational school graduates. Working people have to adapt to the requirements of the skill-changing labor market, raise the qualifications to the requirements of the workplace, and they receive financial support by employers or from the European Social Fund. Young people up to the age of 30 more often participate in adult education programs. And from the other side, people over 60 are the least interested in educational programs. What are the reasons that people have for participation? Respondents from many European countries replied to this question and giving reasons for participating in adult education. They want to do better, improve career prospects. They want to be less likely to lose their jobs. They want to increase possibilities of getting a job or changing a job, or maybe start their own business. They are sometimes obliged to participate or forced. They want to get some skills which are useful in everyday life, and they want to get skills for the subject of interest, or sometimes just obtain a certificate. They also want to meet some new people, and they want to do it for fun, which, as I know from my experience, the Open University at Kujawska Szkoła Wyższa is facing those goals and ambitions of people over 60. What are the results for people involved in adult education? This is the access to employment for job seekers or inactive people. They include the long-term unemployment and people who are far from the labor market. Another result is sustainable integration into the labor market of young people, and also self-employment, entrepreneurship and business creation, which includes innovative micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. It's the equality between men and women in all areas. It's the adaptation of workers, enterprises and entrepreneurs to change. And another result is active and healthy aging. Currently, there are many specific goals for adult education and training. One of them is quality, when we want to improve the quality and effectiveness of our work. Inclusivity, which means we ensure that everyone has access to sources of lifelong learning. and international acceptability and accessibility, which means that the courses, the training is open to on a wider perspective. These goals apply to many European programs and European projects on many levels of education and training. It includes teacher training, basic skills, integration of information and communication technologies, which are called ICT, language learning, lifelong guidance. The adult education is gaining importance in our times because it understands the current labor market and its power, that it's driven by the development of modern technology and innovation. What are the key issues in situation in Poland? In Poland, the educational system has traditionally relied on mostly on formal school education. But in recent years, out of the school opportunities have been appearing. This is also the market situation, and those products are marketable. The courses, the sessions of training and coaching, and they are also usually branded in very specific manner. As I mentioned, coaching, mindfulness, they are very popular now and are gaining a lot of audience and people who are interested to join them. And usually those courses are very, very expensive. There are many public institutions in Poland of adult education, and they are established and run by public bodies. So this is easy to put them into some forms and frames. They organize adult education in forms of, as we say, in school and out of school forms. They cooperate with the labor offices and employers in the fields of training, and also they play an important role in preparing and implementing curricula and methods in adult education. Those centers are the basis for the National Distance Learning Network and National Network of Simulation Laboratories. So as from my perspective and my experiences, where the system is governed centrally and nationally, and where validation is needed, then the system is more effective. There is also quite a lot of learning, adult learning going on in companies, in the so-called in-company courses. It's not only languages. Employees in large firms enjoy a higher probability of participation in learning. Although this picture is in line with findings in other European countries, it is difficult to judge how much of these differences are due to the size of firms or different composition of staff. Considering this, about 40% of companies train their personnel, and the participation of employees is about 15%. Although employees over 45 years of age participate a bit less, the difference between participation rates of different age groups is much smaller in large companies and more pronounced in small companies. I think with large companies, it's more like they have a model of being more like corpo. So it means that this is a system of hierarchy and training, and the employees are by law need to follow the in-company training. Very popular in Poland now is the e-learning, and to overcome regional asymmetries and offer disadvantaged groups access to education, Poland has invested in long distance and e-learning opportunities. And distance and e-learning can be a double-edged sword when investment in technologies and learning opportunities is unevenly spread. Up to now, Polish government has pursued a policy to avoid this divide. And in the sectoral operational plan, one of the European funded projects, the centers of distance learning in villages and small towns are mentioned as instruments for reducing the educational gap between the rural and urban areas. Additionally, a more intensive use of ICT in the educational process is seen as a means to improve the quality of education in the continuous education centers. So with European Union funds, we have been granted quite a lot of money on investment. And of course, the present situation we are facing under the pandemic in Poland, as it was mentioned some 2 weeks ago in my lecture. The situation of e-learning has also been stressed, and it has become an open situation, and in a way we have been forced to use it, especially as we all now work, all of us work in university level, and we all know that it was not easy, because it had happened in just one day for us. But that was an instrument that has been tested, or had been tested before in some areas. Like in my university, many of the language courses had been online before, and that was quite successful. But from March 13th this year, it had just happened to be the only way and the only method acceptable. And we in Poland now, from October the 1st, as I think 90% of universities stick to the distant learning system. So you can compare if it's different in Ukraine or the same, but in Poland, 95% of universities will start the distant learning as the only method. And it's also going to follow all training in adult education, because our university also offers training sessions in vocational part of education. What are the key issues in Poland right now? As a summary, some key issues are based on the analysis of economic and social development trends in Poland, and they can be highlighted as relevant to adult education. This is low educational attainment in adult population. At present, there is a strong focus on improving completion rates of secondary and tertiary education for young people. While this is very positive, it might contribute to development of a strong cleavage in society if the educational needs of adults are not strengthened concurrently. High unemployment rates with a large proportion of low-skilled unemployment. Much unemployment is concentrated now on young people. High rates of inactivity, especially among older people, who concentrate on those with low skills. Low level of labor productivity and participation rates of adults in continuous education that show a highly selective pattern. How to make trainings, adult education more effective, especially in the present world and the growing innovative economics. This is an overall question in the framework of the discussion on quality. And it's also whether the training models correspond to the needs of Polish labor market. The view that training provided does not always correspond to labor market needs to be gaining ground in the assessment of training strategies, and also with the different ministries. In the National Strategy for Employment and Human Resources Development, the government has stressed the importance of vocational training, and in particular training that leads to the acquisition of practical skills precisely for this reason. And a network of practical training centers with necessary equipment and staff is planned. A way to solve problems of financing modern equipment for vocational schools and vocational training centers is to place the emphasis on practical training, as 2/3 is given as a target in educational reform for the training provided by employers themselves. In adult education, we also need to talk about costs and values. Adult education is a broad term covering a range of learning by adults, where the emphasis is on the learning being the value to the individual, as well as to the community and the wider economy. While the benefits of vocationally oriented training are more directly measurable in quantifiable terms, the many benefits of adult education are often more intangible, relating to individuals' personal circumstances. So the purpose of these financial indicators is the readiness to imbalance the identifying ways and measure the two questions: where are the costs and where is the value added? So we need to think about the additional final outcome of adult education. The starting point for an evaluation strategy, whether or not it's linked to return on investment, return on business as a learning process, needs to be a clear understanding of why the evaluation is needed. In the case of adult learning, in many European countries, there has been a reduction and shift from the support given to adult education, and it has become more formalized. Evaluation is required in order to promote a more informed dialogue between funders and beneficiaries, as well as giving equal recognition to all sectors within adult education and find adequate financing solutions. However, given the diversity of the sector and complexity of the outcomes, many of which cannot be pre-planned or anticipated, there is an equal and corresponding imperative to approach to place a minimal load on practitioners, at the same time meeting the agreed objectives. So the approach must be agreed before, and I think that some kind of bureaucracy has to be, should be avoided. We should try, it's not easy, but it should be a situation. What are the results for personal development, the results of adult education and lifelong learning? This is sometimes seen as a therapy. It may improve people's self-esteem, build the confidence. It may help people to focus more in a positive manner. It's also part of social interaction. People are not so depressed when they have the reason to get up in the morning and do something. It's also helping to build self-confidence and self-development. It has influence on empathy. It expands many possibilities, like people may have the feeling that they can do anything. It helps to, it is also fun for many of us, so many people. It helps to learn how to speak in front of the group, and also it's the sense of achievement, which may become the source of being proud. As for the employment, there are very clear benefits. They are the economic benefits. It's the idea of learning some new skills, opening new career perspectives, or it's the access to different information. It may also lead to financial benefits. It's a platform to display the results of work, and it's the platform to communicate skills and help people identify their needs. It's also the transfer of knowledge, and it may lead to further education. Now, one other point which was formed as a question at the beginning of my speech is the validation. There is no single system for validation, but different procedures are applied in many different sectors. Validation is certification in general, yes. In many other sectors, validation arrangements are implemented and typically cover the 4 stages. This is identification, documentation, assessment, and certification, which means it's a lot of bureaucracy. Those qualifications are modular, and the units of qualifications are now awarded in increasing numbers in Poland. They are usually the national standards, like the qualification requirement issued by ministries of education or higher education, and validation requirements which are issued by laws or other policies by ministries, and also in special fields of businesses. And those sectors apply to competence-based approach, and the qualification requirements are defined in terms of learning outcomes. Very often the education processes are finalized with exams, oral exams or written exams. Right now, most of them are distant exams. So the validation is working really well, and the numbers of participants is really increasing, and I think it's a global situation. The good thing about validation of non-formal education is that when it is done systematically, it makes visible the full range of knowledge and competences which are held by an individual, irrespective of where and how they have been acquired. In short, validation can help many people overcome the skill gap, help with the immigrant integration, help with the workforce mobility within Europe and the world, and it may boost the economy. It may also boost the self-esteem and motivation of learners. Finally, answers to many more questions will be needed when establishing a validation system, including what exactly should be measured. Is it only presence or skills? Do learners have the right to a certificate? And what should the certificate carry? And should it be included in the price of the course? They are the basic questions that many learners ask at the beginning of the course. Will I get a certificate, and will I have to pay for certification? Adult education goes next to and is part of economics, as this is part of our topic today. What are the objectives in innovative economics? The key objective of operational innovative economics is the development driven by innovation-seeking companies. And this can be accomplished by and achieved by the following goals: increase of innovation in business, rise in competitiveness of sciences, higher importance of sciences for economic growth, increased share of innovative products in economy, and providing better and long-lasting jobs. And also the use of ICT, as I mentioned, the computer technology in economics. Innovation is by definition introduction of something new. And without it, there wouldn't be any changes, any progress. And if an organization isn't making the progress, it simply cannot stay relevant on the competitive market. Because organizations are very often working with other individual organizations, it can sometimes be challenging to understand the impacts of innovation on our society. There is, however, a lot more to innovation than just firms looking to achieve competitive advantages. What are the aspects of innovations? Some aspects of learning related to innovation which emerged is the importance of working and communicating with people from another discipline or another company, people who work on different tasks and people who work in another country. Opportunities to develop this kind of experience can be provided by work associations, by European projects, which can fund networking and mobility initiatives to stimulate cross-fertilization of ideas and provide opportunity for employees to experience multiple working environments and cultures. Another important way to develop skills that are necessary is by having the mobile employees. This is also quite a big investment for businesses, but it's part of the society right now. What I want to stress as also as an Erasmus coordinator for many years is the new initiative of Brussels, which is a strategic partnership for innovation. This new call has been introduced recently in August, and I'm going to write a project on that, including our Ukrainian partners. This call is about digital readiness. So are we ready in the digital sphere to face our training systems, how we can change them? And of course, the project will be about the actual participation of representatives of Ukrainian universities in different trainings in Cyprus and also in Poland. The deadline for the project is the 29th of October. I'm just hoping to be successful with this. It's going to start in spring, about May next year, and it's going to last for about 2 years. So I guess I will be able to offer you quite a lot of training opportunities within the strategic partnership. The administrators of the project are the organizations and not individuals. This project will support cooperation of about 4 institutions from different countries, and it will aim to promote and develop innovation like new curriculums in different topics, new methods of teaching, teaching in specific target groups, like the disabled, for example, new approach to teaching, language training, mindfulness, coaching, the issues that I mentioned at the beginning. It will involve changes and developments in innovative practices that lead to high quality teaching, training, and learning. And hopefully we will be able to become part of this. This will be something new and maybe one of the directions that we, one of the options for our ventures. Finally, what is the future of adult education? There are different trends, as I said. It's online education, blended learning, employers and employer partnership, global market and national systems, and also the certificates. Nowadays, about 75% of adult education is related to our workplace. Adult education is currently positioned as a way to serve economic needs. These people with stable, high-wage jobs have regular opportunities for learning and professional development, whereas opportunities for those with the greater needs for education and training are usually limited. It will become increasingly difficult for smaller companies to fund learning activities, whereas larger multinational companies with human resources departments and training specialists will do much better. Still, will education and training remain a priority for the companies and when they struggle financially? Will the 2020 global pandemic present opportunities for any adult learning and constructing adult education practices in a more available way? Adult education should be at the forefront of providing everyone with a fair chance to develop the abilities and put them into valuable use. This can be done both in the community and in the workplace, and it needs to be supported by governments across the globe to heal the economic and social wounds after the pandemic. With leading tertiary education institutions set to lose tuition and fee-paying students as a result of continued travel restrictions and delays in the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, universities and colleges might need to develop alternative ways to serve local communities. This may be done through continuing professional development, evening classes, clear pathways into higher education. What is my conclusion? There is the general agreement that adult learning in the next 10 years will be able to take advantage of the abundance of learning materials which are produced in multiple and collaborative ways, offered by many different providers and players, and used by learners, enabling strong personalization of the learning process. Fluidity will be the key to allowing learners to move easily from one educational setting to another without impediments, according to their own interests and needs of the moment. This is the vision, but it's not necessarily new. It is becoming more likely as we move towards the digital network society. Finally, I want to present a Facebook account, which I will also send to my colleagues over email. This is a European Union funded organization, and it's a body of EPALE or EPALE. This is the Adult Learning Society in Europe. They have a Facebook account, and there is a conference, which is an online conference, and I would like you to invite you to this, to join it. This is on the 6th, 7th, 8th of October. It's about the shaping of the future of adult learning. So when you put EPALE on Facebook and adult learning in Europe, you can join it and listen to many people who share their views and information on adult education. This is a very big topic, and I think we all have quite a lot of experience in the field. We cannot share it right now because it's maybe not the moment, it's not the case, but we can exchange this over emails or maybe hopefully meet in the future face to face and be able to share our experiences and views related to lifelong learning. Thank you very much.
Щиро дякуємо вам, шановні пані Джоанні. На початку лекції я дійсно згадав, що минулого року, в жовтні, ми були присутні на відкритті навчального року Київського університету, і тоді пані Джоанна запрошувала нас на наступний вересень, тобто на сьогодні, на святкування масштабне 20-річчя, але через пандемію і інші події ми взагалі за це забули, тому щиро від цієї української спільноти науковцям вітаємо ваш навчальний заклад, вітаємо вас особисто, пані Джоанна. Ми під час особистих спілкувань зрозуміли, що саме пані Джоанна досягла того рівня розвитку університету на міжнародній арені протягом 20 років роботи в місті Владславик. Місто Владславик невелике місто, і поруч є великі міста Гданськ, Лоць, але пані Джоанна патріот свого університету, патріот свого міста і активно працює на благо свого університету. Тому щиро вас вітаємо, дякуємо за цікаві лекції і хочемо побажати всім вдалого проходження вчених рад ваших університетів і сподіваємося, що абсолютно більшість з вас, хто саме проходить стажування з метою отримання доцента та професора, ми побачимо в найближчому наказі Міністерства освіти і науки про присвоєння або чинного звання доцента, або професора. Надзвичайно було приємно з вами спілкуватись. Дякую всім, хто слідкує за сайтом, за Ютубом, за Фейсбуком нашого центру. Через 30 хвилин на Ютуб-каналі центру з'явиться відео. І якщо хтось не зафіксував адресу Фейсбук-групи, яку демонструвала Джоанна, на яку вона радила підписатись, ви зможете переглянути на Ютуб-каналі Центру Україно-Європейського співробітництва. Всім дякуємо за увагу і бажаємо здоров'я та успішного навчального року. До побачення.
Дякуємо.
Дякуємо, щасливо.
Дякуємо.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Спасибо, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.